Mom testifies against me in court, trying to force me to pay child support for a baby that isn't mine because DNA doesn't matter, family is family. But months later I finally exposed my ex-wife's disgusting truth and Mom is mad. PC, the entire family is distancing themselves from her, and even my own dad wants to divorce. Can you imagine your own mother testifying against you in court, all for the sake of a stranger's baby? Because that's what happened, and it wasn't just a betrayal. It was a nuclear bomb that shattered my entire family. See, for as long as I can remember, my mom desperately wanted a daughter. It was her lifelong dream. So, when she and my dad found out they were expecting their first child, me, her excitement was through the roof. But then came the ultrasound. When they learned I was going to be a boy, everything changed. Her disappointment was instant, and she never, ever let me forget it. She's recounted that story to me countless times, making it crystal clear I wasn't the child she'd hoped for. My parents had always planned for more kids, especially because my mom was so set on having a girl. But life, as it often does, had other plans. After I was born, my mom developed severe health issues that made it impossible for her to carry another child. The thought of never conceiving again absolutely crushed her. I can only imagine the weight of that loss. It's one she still carries today. Her dream of having a daughter was just gone. In the years that followed, her yearning for a daughter only intensified. I'd watch her dote on my female cousins, lavishing them with affection and gifts that felt like the maternal love she'd always wanted to give. There was a noticeable difference in how she treated them versus me. Oddly enough, for most of my life, this didn't really bother me. I just accepted it. I knew she loved me and I was mostly at peace with it. Until Sophia came into the picture. Sophia was the daughter of my mother's long-lost best friend from high school. They'd reconnected after years, and when my mom first met Sophia, she was instantly captivated. She thought Sophia was beautiful, and just like that she decided Sophia would be perfect for me. At the time I was single, and my mom had been relentless in trying to set me up, but nothing ever stuck. This time though, she was practically obsessed. For weeks, she wouldn't stop talking about how stunning and wonderful Sophia was, how perfectly we'd complement each other. Eventually, to quiet her, I caved. I agreed to a blind date, more to shut her up than out of any real interest. When I finally met Sophia, she was indeed incredibly beautiful, just like my mom said. But as the evening went on, I started to realize there wasn't much substance beneath the surface. I like to know what drives people, their goals, their dreams. So I asked Sophia what she wanted to do with her life. Her answer hit me like a cold splash of water. My dream is to be a stay-at-home mom. Now, there's absolutely nothing wrong with wanting to raise a family, but at that point in my life, my ambitions were completely different. I wasn't even thinking about kids, and I expected a partner who had aspirations beyond just starting a family. So I asked her, "What do you plan to do before you have children?" Her reply left me even more perplexed. "I just want to be a stay-at-home wife." She explained that her mother had always been a stay-at-home mom until her dad passed, and in her eyes, that was the secret to their successful marriage. I could respect her family's values, but it just wasn't what I was looking for. I wanted someone with passion, purpose, whether in a career or a personal pursuit. The idea of someone whose only goal was to be a stay-at-home spouse didn't align with my values at all. I also learned that Sophia and her mom were living with an uncle who covered all their expenses because her mother still refused to work. I left that date feeling undeniably disappointed. I'd gone in with low expectations, mostly to appease my mom, but I knew this wasn't it. Naturally, my mother was not pleased when I told her. She was visibly upset, as if I'd personally wronged her. She insisted I hadn't given Sophia a real chance, that if I just tried harder, I'd see what she saw. But my mind was made up. I told her firmly to let it go. I should have known better. My mom doesn't give up easily, especially when she's got her heart set on something. Not long after, she invited me over for dinner, which wasn't unusual. But when I arrived, Sophia was there too. My mom had orchestrated a setup. The second I walked in, both my parents practically ran out the door, a mischievous smirk on their faces saying, "Enjoy your date." I was mortified. Sophia looked just as shocked. We stood there, two strangers thrown together, neither of us knowing what to say. It was a blind date in my own living room with no escape. For a few awkward minutes, silence. I could have just left, but I didn't want to embarrass her. She was as much a victim of my mom's matchmaking as I was. So, instead of bolting, we exchanged a few awkward laughs, acknowledging the bizarre situation, and sat down. I figured since we were stuck, I might as well get to know her better. She admitted she'd liked me after our first date and thought I'd liked her too, so my silence had confused her. I gently explained that while she was kind and beautiful, our goals were just too different. Then she surprised me. She said her intention wasn't just to sit around doing nothing. She told me about her volunteer work at her church, how she spent her days working with children and helping those in need. Completely changed my perspective. I started to see another side of Sophia, one I hadn't appreciated. She seemed genuinely warm and kind, at least initially. While she lacked career ambitions, she found purpose in caring for others, and that generosity of spirit felt rare. Despite my reservations, despite my lingering doubts, I decided to take a leap. I asked her out again. Sophia and I dated for about a year. During that time I got a big promotion at work, which significantly boosted my income. I felt financially stable enough to support her, giving me the confidence to propose. But the timing wasn't entirely my own. Both our mothers, especially mine, were constantly pushing for us to get married. They kept reminding us Sophia's biological clock was ticking, even though neither of us wanted kids yet. The pressure was relentless. It made me think marriage was the obvious next step. When we finally got engaged, my mother, true to form, took over the wedding planning. She insisted on a grand ceremony, sparing no expense, offering to pay for everything. She was determined to make Sophia's dream wedding come true, as if Sophia were her own daughter. It was generous but also incredibly overwhelming. The wedding was lavish, far grander than I'd anticipated. But seeing Sophia so happy made it all worth it. After the wedding and honeymoon, I dove back into my demanding job. Sophia moved in, and just as we discussed, she fully embraced her role as a stay-at-home wife. She wasn't idle though. She continued her volunteer work at a church in my locality, something she was truly passionate about. But not long after settling into married life, I started noticing things about Sophia's routine that just felt off. We'd never lived together before, so I was learning all these little details. One thing that really stood out was her insistence that I send money to her mother every month. She argued we had more than enough, and as a good son-in-law, it was my duty. I found it strange. It had never been mentioned before marriage, and I'd assumed her uncle covered her mother's needs. Then there was her schedule. She'd often go out and come home really late. I expected a stay-at-home wife to be home more, handling things like cooking and cleaning during the day. Instead, she'd always seem rushed when I got back from work, frantically throwing dinner together late in the evening. When I asked why she was coming home so late, she'd tell me she was helping someone, a homeless person, a kid from the community who needed guidance. I didn't want to discourage her good deeds, but I thought there was an understanding that as a homemaker, she'd manage the house. That just wasn't happening. Meals were late, laundry piled up. The house was rarely cleaned the way I thought it should be. At first, I tried not to make a big deal out of it. But frustration grew. I started having calm conversations with her about balancing her volunteer work and home responsibilities. Each time she promised to change, to do better. But the pattern never broke. Always the same story. Late dinners, undone chores, excuses about how busy she'd been helping others. One weekend, while she was out volunteering again, I decided to surprise her at the church. Maybe I could spend some time with her, even lend a hand. When I arrived, I asked around for Sophia. But the people there looked confused. After asking several, it became clear. My wife had never volunteered there. In fact, no one knew who she was. A cold knot formed in my stomach. For months, she'd been telling me she spent her days at this specific church, volunteering. And now, they didn't even know her name. I tried to convince myself I'd made a mistake, that I'd misunderstood the name, or maybe she volunteered somewhere else. That evening when she came home, I tried to play it cool. Casually asked about her day. She launched into her usual detailed explanation of how hard she'd worked, all the people she'd helped. After she finished, I asked her directly, "Which church was that again?" She repeated the exact same name, the church where they'd told me she didn't exist. That's when it hit me. Sophia had been lying. Not just once, but repeatedly. She was deliberately deceiving me about where she spent her time. Why? What was she really doing? Had to find out. The very next day, instead of heading to work, I parked my car down the street, out of sight. I was going to follow her. I wanted her to prove me wrong, to head to the church, to make this whole suspicion a misunderstanding. I even prepared myself to apologize later, to confess my insecurity. But what unfolded next, I could never have prepared for. An hour after I left the house, I saw her walk out. Not in her usual conservative clothes, but in shorts and a tank top, an outfit I'd never seen her wear. She got into the car, and instead of heading towards the church, she drove in the opposite direction. My heart hammered. I followed, staying a few cars behind. I kept telling myself there had to be a logical explanation. An errand. Meeting someone from the church. Eventually, she pulled into a quiet neighborhood and parked in front of a house I didn't recognize. It wasn't her mother's or any cousin's. A man walked out to greet her. My heart plummeted as I watched him embrace her. Then, to my utter shock, they kissed in the driveway. They held each other, arms wrapped around one another like it was the most natural thing in the world. I couldn't breathe. It was like watching a car crash in slow motion, except I was the one crashing. There was nothing I could do. My hands gripped the steering wheel, trying to process. Sophia and the man walked back inside, arms still entwined, as if they'd done this 100 times before. Felt sick. This wasn't a random fling. The comfort, the intimacy. This was a long-standing affair. My heart felt ripped from my chest. All the doubts, the odd timings, the flimsy excuses, it all made sickening sense now. She'd been living a double life, lying to me about where she spent her days, all while carrying on this affair right under my nose. My first instinct was to call my mother. To vent, to tell her everything, to hear her voice. But I knew she'd call Sophia immediately, out of anger or shock, and that would tip Sophia off. I didn't want her to know I'd found out, not yet. I needed proof. Concrete evidence. So when the inevitable confrontation came, I'd have everything I needed to end this marriage. Had to be smart. For 2 weeks after that gut-wrenching discovery, I channeled all my energy into gathering evidence for the divorce. I met with a lawyer to protect my assets. We didn't have a prenup, and I wasn't about to let this betrayal financially ruin me. The evening I finally confronted Sophia felt surreal. I sat her down calmly and told her I knew about her affair. She looked shocked at first, even tried to deny it, to argue. But I was ready. One by one I presented my evidence. Photos of her with the man, screenshots of their text messages from her phone, records of all the days she'd lied about being at church. With every piece, her facade crumbled. She knew there was no talking her way out of it. Finally, begrudgingly, she confessed. The man was her high school boyfriend, which I'd already figured out through some research. She tried to downplay it, saying she was just being stupid, just fooling around, nothing serious. She insisted it wasn't supposed to go this far. I wasn't buying it. I looked her in the eyes and firmly told her, "I'm divorcing you." She was stunned. I think she genuinely believed she could talk me out of it, that I'd forgive her. But when she realized I was serious, she started begging. She pleaded with me to reconsider, swore she could change, that we could work things out. But her pleas fell on deaf ears. I knew I could never trust her again. I calmly told her to pack her bags and leave. To prevent any confusion or manipulation from our families, I created a group chat with my parents and Sophia's mother. In it I laid out everything. Every single piece of proof of Sophia's infidelity. The photos, the texts. I wanted them to know the full truth, to prevent any false narratives from being spun. I knew all hell would break loose, and I wasn't leaving any room for misunderstanding. As expected, the reactions were intense. My mother was absolutely livid, outraged that Sophia had betrayed me. But almost immediately, she and Sophia's mother started begging me to reconsider. Despite the undeniable evidence, they pleaded with me to find it in my heart to forgive her, to give her another chance. Thankfully, my dad stood by me. He reassured me I was making the right decision, that no one should stay with a cheater. He told me I deserved better and fully supported my divorce. A week after I filed, Sophia and her mother showed up at my house unexpectedly. Sophia dropped a bombshell. She was pregnant and she claimed it was mine. My immediate reaction was disbelief. I outright refused to accept it, given her affair. Sophia's mother lashed out, accusing me of ruining her daughter's life by not accepting responsibility and divorcing Sophia so suddenly. She made me sound like the cruel one. Then my own mother doubled down. She talked about how children change everything, how a baby could bring Sophia and me closer, as if pregnancy was some magical cure for infidelity. She swore Sophia would never cheat again, and I needed to consider the child's future, not just my pride. She made me feel like the bad guy for walking away from a marriage built on lies. When I still wouldn't give in, my mother, in her desperation, threatened to testify against me in court, especially if child support came up. She swore she'd make sure I paid for the baby, regardless of paternity. DNA doesn't matter, family is family, she argued, implying she didn't care who the biological father was. She was determined to claim that child as her grandchild, even if it meant fighting me in court. And that is exactly what she did. True to her word, my mother testified against me during the divorce proceedings. It was one of the most painful betrayals I've ever experienced. My lawyer and I fought hard to make the court understand Sophia's infidelity and the very real possibility the child wasn't mine. But my mother and Sophia's mother downplayed Sophia's affair, twisting it into some innocent mistake. They even argued that because Sophia and I had been intimate just weeks before our separation, right around when I discovered her affair, the baby had to be mine. Thankfully, the judge ruled that no final decision regarding child support or paternity could be made until after the baby was born and a proper paternity test was conducted. Only then would it be determined if I was the biological father. I was relieved. It felt like a small victory in a draining, painful process. At least now, I wouldn't be forced to support a child that might not be mine without solid proof. But my mother, Sophia, and her mother were furious with the outcome. My mother later told me she wished I wasn't her child, and that if I were truly a man, I'd pull up my pants and accept Sophia's child regardless of the paternity test. For months, she went around bad-mouthing me to everyone in our family, painting me as the villain who destroyed my marriage over what she insisted was Sophia's one-time mistake. No matter how much proof I presented or how many logical arguments I made, my mother clung to her narrative, blaming me for everything. So, you can imagine my immense satisfaction when the day finally came for the paternity test results. Sophia gave birth to a girl this week, and we promptly had the test done. As expected, the baby was not mine. When I shared the results with Sophia, she broke down, pleading with me to accept the child. She argued her friends and family would shun her and her daughter if I didn't step up. I felt a deep pit of sympathy for her situation, but it didn't change the facts. "I'm sorry," I told her firmly, "but I can't do that. It's no longer my responsibility." Since then, she's continued to call, leaving me voicemails, begging me to reconsider. For everyone asking, Sophia argued that since I probably wouldn't have kids anytime soon, I should think of this baby as mine, even after she cheated. She also finally revealed that the guy she had the affair with, her high school sweetheart, refused to marry her. In fact, he was never ready to settle down, which is why she had to marry me in the first place. It was clear she wanted to use me as a cash cow while continuing her affair with him. Honestly, I hope she takes him to court for child support, but at this point I just don't care anymore. I took everyone's advice and made a public Facebook post, announcing that I am not the father of Sophia's child. I was sick of my mom supporting Sophia after everything, and I wanted to humiliate her the way she'd humiliated me. Well, guess what? After I made that post, my mom called me, absolutely furious because people were turning on her. She accused me of betraying her, which was ironic given she was the one who backstabbed me by testifying against me in court and trying to make me pay child support for a child that wasn't mine. A lot of my mom's friends and relatives had actually believed her narrative at first. But now, with the paternity test results public, it was undeniable that my mom was wrong about Sophia. People are calling her out in the comments and to her face, telling her she needs to be a better parent to me, and that I am the actual victim. After my mom called to yell at me, she and Dad ended up having a huge fight. He was fed up with her constantly bullying me and threatened to leave her if she didn't drop this insane idea of forcing me to accept Sophia's child. It's been 5 months since my last update. My parents have decided to separate. My mom has refused to change. She's even started calling herself Grandma to Sophia's baby. She's been giving Sophia money every month and volunteers to babysit. It seems she's finally living out her dream of having a long-lost daughter, just like she always wanted. My dad, however, is disgusted. He feels it's borderline inappropriate and wants nothing to do with Sophia or her child. This has resulted in multiple fights where my mother refuses to take any accountability. As a result, my dad has moved out and is staying with me. It breaks my heart that my mom is choosing my cheater ex-wife's child over her own family. Anyway, my dad will be talking to a lawyer this week and moving forward with a divorce. Can you believe a parent would put a stranger's child above their own? What would you do if your own mother betrayed you like this? Tell me what you think in the comments below. I really want to know.